Hi, guys, and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. I'm your host, Moose, and this is my producer, Nick. Our main discussion is about Islam in the 21st century. However, we will critique other religions and ideologies. We condemn any form of discrimination, violence, misogyny, slavery. We do, however, embrace many perspectives and free speech if it is factual and correct, and not based on any hate. Throughout the show, we will be exploring different religious beliefs, practices, and their impact on society, ranging from politics, interpersonal relationships, and mental health of believers and non believers. We hope to create an open dialogue for those who feel they're not heard, especially those who have doubts and have left their belief systems. If you are interested in exploring the complex topic of religion and wish to be part of an honest and open dialogue, this is the show for you. We also welcome feedback and discussion from our audience and listeners. The Gin and Tonic Show is a free speech platform where you can express your ideas without any fear of violence and repercussions or any consequences. Please do join our discussion in the live chat as well as the comments. Thank you for stopping by and enjoy the Gin and Tonic Show.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. Hello, Dude Abides. Well, today, I'm your host, Moose, the Gin and Tonic Show himself. I'm joined by the honorable, very well mannered, very well cultured. He will come into your nightmares and will say, history, society, and humanity is complicated. Cultured Ginny, welcome, Cultured Ginny.
Hello, I'm here to complicate things.
Yes, but to be fair though, Culture Dine, today's topic has some people say it's simple, but some say it's complicated. I find that there's more layers to this conflict. Also, hello D. So there's many layers in this matter itself, and I think you and I had this discussion last time. We try to, I think I know yourself to try to avoid the discussion because many sides. I think you can describe it best, like how the discussion goes about this conflict.
Yeah, it's kind of like this is one of those conflicts where it's very hard to just stay in the middle or have some sort of nuanced positions because the other side is always going to see you as siding with the other side if you criticize them or if you raise a point in one side's favor or the other.
Yeah, and this is it gets
Or
very
raise a
heated.
point against.
Yeah, it gets very heated,
It's
very
it's
emotional.
it's like the entire conflict about Israel Palestine is a subject of it's like fuel for flame wars.
Yes. And I think today we're just gonna see what has happened in the coming days. That is, what was the news? What was what do you call it? Yeah, basically like more things along the lines of like what has happened so far. What has happened? I think we're gonna start with like what's but keep in mind though, we're only gonna state facts here. We're gonna try our best to stay in the middle, or even we'll try to be fair again with the limited knowledge we both have. We are flawed human beings. We have very limited knowledge of this matter itself, so please, you know feel free to tell us we're wrong, but please do it in a more civilized manner, please, because I don't think calling each other like names and stuff is gonna help necessarily. I think I sent it to. I think I have some of these in some messages. That is 1 second. I just realized I put them in the wrong place. The articles. That is. But yeah, it's definitely like there's it started with the Hamas attack on Israeli soil. That is. So I just wanted to see where the fuck did I actually. I'm so sorry. Where the fuck did I actually put the first article? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll just pull up a random article. So. Oh, actually, yeah. Now I realize where I saved them. Never mind. Never mind. My apologies. It's going to be somewhat of a long podcast, and it's going to be a bit. How's the articles? Is it where? One second. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. Okay, so I think the first news you were, I think you brought up Ginny as well, was not we're not going to go to the initial attack, but there's article that I have about like the killing of babies, that is, in Israel, on Israeli soil. Now, the Israel official says government cannot confirm if babies were beheaded in Hamas attack. So this was the Hamas attack, I think on Friday, or I'm not sure, like it's been a few days. I'm very behind on this because there's a specific claim that Hamas
it was on Saturday.
Saturday cut off the heads of the babies during their shock attack on Saturday, an Israeli official told. There was a previous statement that there have been cases of Hamas militants carrying out beheadings of other ISIS-style atrocities. However, we cannot confirm if the victims were men or women or soldiers or adults or children. So they were horrifying photos. There were horrifying photos of babies being burnt. That is. 3 photos show the 2 babies whose bodies had been burnt beyond recognition, and third infant's blood-stained body. And I think Ginny and I saw those photos. I
you shouldn't show them on YouTube because YouTube will be very finicky with those things.
Yeah, I'm not going to show it because again, it's disturbing.
There is also there. I think that this is an older article, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 2 days old. That is. So I'm
because I've seen on the gore sites and the also even worse pictures of other children.
Yeah. So 1 second, I'm just gonna pull up the Hamas initial Hamas attack.
Do it. Sometimes 7th. It can be hard to identify from where they are.
Yeah, I think with Hamas,
but we shouldn't show in this.
Yeah, we were not going to show the photos of people getting attacked or anything like that. So I think this was we'll just go with the United Institute of Peace because we're going to try to a week after the Hamas heinous attack in southern Israel. So this was in southern Israel. Has said like 1,300 Israelis, mostly civilians, have been killed, and Israeli officials believe as many as 150 hostages were taken by Hamas. U.S. officials have said that 27 U.S. citizens were also killed. As Israel intensifies its operation, 2,000 Palestinians have been killed so far. So there has been damage from Hamas to Israeli civilians, but Israel has also intensified its offensive. So it's also been killing Palestinian citizens located in Gaza, the Gaza Strip, that is. Again, there's 2 regions, the Gaza Strip and you have the West Bank. The Gaza Strip is ruled by the terrorist organization or people. Some people have been calling them freedom fighters, Hamas, the party Hamas. And, Israel has been in constant conflict with Hamas. With Israel calling up 360,000 reservists, the cessation of hostility seems like a distant prospect. So now the U.S. has also sent $2 billion in military aid to Israel, that is, including ammunition, interceptors, and other defense technology. So, a week after Hamas, how do you see someone who has worked in the decade see the events of last week? She said it's basically an interview. She said it's gut wrenching. Like, we are unfortunate at the beginning of an inevitably protracted war that has already claimed the lives of countless innocent Israelis and Palestinians, with more heavy losses to come. And I kind of predict this too. I remember, Ginny, that when the Hamas attack happened, actually, wait, where did Ginny go? There you are. Sorry, I think you cut off Ginny. That's okay. Can you hear me, Ginny?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's
Okay,
just that my internet right now isn't the best.
That's okay. I also, like, I was talking to Ginny, and there was someone who was celebrating this actually, that Hamas was able to infiltrate into Israel and kill civilians, and they would, like, I know this someone who was also a family member, like, celebrating this, and I was like, this is not a good sign. I legit had an argument with them that this is not a good sign, because it is gonna escalate. It's gonna be bad. This is also horrible done by Hamas, and there's so much whataboutery. It's like, oh, but they also kill, like, Gazan kids and blah blah blah, and there's a victory for Hamas. And I think, Ginny, you said something about a victory of Islam. Someone's claimed in one of the discussions or something like that.
Yeah, I had a discussion with a guy that claimed it was in Arabic, and he claimed that it was a victory for Islam, and I said that you do realize that Muhammad forbade the killing of babies and these young children that I've seen here, and that he celebrated, and that he also forbade the burning of people, and they burned babies, so they did double wrong here. And also, by the way, it isn't just Muhammad. It is also, like, I've read that people were actually freaked out. Yes, that's true, Ali.
This is very true, Ali. People were dying in Gaza.
Yeah.
We're
this
actually
is very true. But
we're gonna cover
still,
what was happening.
I mean,
before as well too.
We will cover that after this. But it wasn't just that, and I also pointed out that you have several traditions of fiqh that actually argue against this sort of treatment of civilians. You have also people, actually, in the 16th century. I actually read a manuscript from the 16th century where they were complaining about a woman, Sayyidatu al-Hurra, which was a pirate queen that used to do raids on the coastal, cities and towns of the Iberian Peninsula, and she used to kill kids and babies, and one actually argued that this isn't okay.
Yes, and
that this was kind of like too brutal, and this was in the 16th century.
Yes, and I think,
like
you made it. I think
almost 500 years ago.
It's weird that you give people from the 16th, 17th century, you make them look better than you. That's how deadly this was, like, by Hamas. And it was.
Yes.
And I think I for sure, I also see Israel overreacting. Plus, I also see the Israeli military.
Oh yes, they have already killed almost twice as many Gazans as Hamas has killed. So Israel is not nice either.
Oh no, not at all. Like, I am not.
This isn't to excuse Israel's behavior.
For sure,
both are wrong. It's because the other one is doing wrong. It does not give the other legitimacy to actually do wrong in return.
Okay, and I'm actually going to share something from the Human Rights Watch. That is just to clarify that this has, the civilian death toll. Again, we're talking civilian death tolls. And what do you call it? The armed groups carried out deadly assaults. They killed several hundred Israelis and led to Israeli counterattacks, killing also hundreds of Palestinians. And I think in the previous article we saw some groups say the attacks, they killed 677 Israelis and foreign nationals, according to Israeli sources. And subsequent Gazan airstrikes also left 413 Palestinians dead, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza reported. Again, this is from the respective health ministries and Human Rights Watch. So we're not making these numbers up. These numbers are here. These are reported numbers. They've also breached the fences, Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups. And again, there are other armed groups besides Hamas, such as the Islamic Jihad. They breached the fences separating Gaza and Israel, and attacked surrounding Israeli communities, infiltrated homes, apparently shot civilians en masse, and took scores of civilians hostages. They reportedly launched more than 3,000 indiscriminate rockets towards Israeli population centers. Omar Shakir of the deliberate killings of hostage-taking collect are heinous crimes, have no justification. Omar Shakir says in the Israel and Palestine Director Human Rights Watch, the unlawful attacks and systematic repression have mired the region for decades and will continue so long human rights and accountability are disregarded. And then this is kind of explaining the history, because Israeli authorities have systematically repressed Palestinians for decades since 2007, imposed a crushing closure on the Gaza population. And also, let's face it, Israel has managed to limit the Gazan population, surrounded it, and the fences are up. And I get some people's argument that,
I mean, they have made Gaza a living prison.
Yeah, they made Gaza a living prison.
I mean, people call it propaganda when people say that, but they aren't wrong.
They aren't wrong when it says it's an open-air prison. It is legit an open-air prison. There are reports of no water, no electricity, shortages, floodings in homes. So it's not even living conditions in Gaza. Gaza is not even livable. So what do you call it? Israel's energy announced that Israel would no longer provide electricity to Gaza's 2.2 million, because the electricity was connected to the main line inside Israel, that is. So this was, sort of like a cutoff. The Palestinian armed groups' apparent deliberate targeting, indiscriminate on war crimes they amount to war crimes for sure. The cutting off of this and other period against it would also amount to unlawful collective punishment, which is also a war crime. So both sides have committed war crimes. And laws of war apply to all parties in a conflict, irrespective of the lawfulness of their going to war or imbalances of power between parties. So this is what we're trying to point out. We know that there is an imbalance. We know, but these are still war crimes. And I actually will react to some videos of the different claims by both sides, that is, by both Israel and Palestinian sides, that we will, which we'll also respond to as well. During the first 9 months, and again, this was happening in 2023 throughout, both in the West Bank and Gaza, because there was the West Bank conflict as well, and there's also a lot of settler gangs too. So the occupied territories have recently faced unprecedented repression. So this was kind of like, I get it, with some people say, oh, they were pushed, and I'm like, that's not necessarily wrong, because
it isn't.
It isn't wrong.
I need to point out one thing though, also. Mm-hmm. Even if you're pushed like this, you can do differently than what was done here.
Yes.
As a type of revenge, or as a military action. You didn't need to kill babies.
Yes, I feel
that was just excessive, and it just shows yourself as being less than an animal.
And not only that, you've also created more of a division. Now you've lost sympathizers for your cause.
Hamas probably wants this division because it fuels them, and it also fuels the extremists on the other side, because Hamas kind of wants this division because it strengthens them. But still, even if I was a leader for Hamas, wanted this division, would have been kind of like, now the problem is that they probably don't have control over all of these forces directly, and this could have been just people doing this personally by their own initiative and such. But it is kind of like a very sensitive thing to go out and personally kill babies, like sending out soldiers to do that, rather than just bombing them very impersonally like Israel does.
What do you call it? Yeah, I think Duda Bides also said, can clever clerics circumvent the forbidding of killing babies like Mass Arab explained? I have to actually watch that Mass Arab video to see about child soldiers. What do you call it? How ISIS
I haven't seen the video, so I can't comment. But
so I
don't think that there is a way to argue against this, because it's
again, if I'm wrong, I think
bullshit. This is a religious war. All the Western narrative about human rights do not apply. This is a war of civilizations. But still, even if you accept that, even if you do that from the Islamist perspective, that human rights do not apply, because from the Islamist perspective do not, you still actually claim to follow the Sunnah of Muhammad. And Muhammad quite clearly, through all of the classical Sunni traditions, was against baby murder and against burning people alive.
Yeah, I think there's a hadith where Ali burned some people alive, and
no, there was some people reported.
Yeah,
about
reported. I
Ali
know
was involved, but I think they reported to Ali that they had done it, and then he said, "I would have never done it."
Oh no, not Ali did it. It was reported to
No,
Abbas.
I think they reported to Ali that they had done it, and he reported that.
No, it's Abbas. I'm telling you, it was Ali's decision, and that Abbas said, "I would have not done this because Muhammad forbade this." It's Ibn Abbas. I think it's Ibn Abbas or Abbas who said.
I will look it up.
Yeah. Just confirm. Just confirm. In case. Actually, you know what? I can look it up myself. To Ali burn. Like we'll just say atheist again. It's called like. Yeah, it's in the. I know it's Wikipedia, but like, let me just present this. Screen. Okay, so here it is. I know I don't have to go too much details. Ali burned some people. When this news reached Ibn Abbas, who said, "Had I been in his place, I would have not burnt them." As the Prophet said, "Don't punish anybody with Allah's punishment." No doubt I would have killed them. For the Prophet said, if somebody discards his religion, kill them. But he said instead, I would not have burnt them.
All right.
Yeah, so it was definitely Ibn Abbas who said that. So, and Ibn Abbas, like, this is what he heard from Muhammad, for example. So even Muhammad's Sunnah forbids burning people alive, that is. So that one itself is not justified, at least in the most brutal Islamic laws, so to speak. I will also continue with the article itself too, because there's more violations that they report. This is even prior to the conflict itself too.
But in any case, it just proves still that burning people alive, like some of these Hamas soldiers did, isn't okay.
Yes. And also, moving forward, the Israeli government's systematic oppression of the occupied territories, coupled with inhumane acts against Palestinians as part of the policy to maintain domination by Jewish Israelis or Palestinians, amount to crimes against humanity of apartheid and persecution, as Human Rights Watch previously found. So, and a lot of people say, "Oh, it's not an apartheid. It's not like South Africa." Blah blah blah.
It is.
It has been identified as such, and these are reports, independent reports that have specified that there was human rights abuses committed by Israeli forces. And this was done by both Israeli forces and by Palestinian armed groups. Israel has repeatedly carried out indiscriminate airstrikes to kill scores of civilians, wiping out entire families and targeted civilians or civilian infrastructure, including destroying the high-rise Gaza towers, full of homes and businesses with no evident military targets in the vicinity. Palestinian armed groups have launched thousands of indiscriminate rockets that violate laws of war and amount to war crimes. Human Rights has for years called for Palestinian armed groups to cease these unlawful attacks, including a recent exchange of letters with Hamas authorities. In 2021, the International Criminal Court prosecutor Fatou Bensouda opened a formal investigation in 2020 to look into the serious crimes committed in Palestine, which is a party to the court's Rome Statute. The current fighting highlights the urgent need for justice and for the ICC Office of the Prosecutor to accelerate its investigation into serious crimes committed by all parties in Palestine. All parties, Human Rights Watch said. And if we've learned anything through prior escalation, is that so long as there is an impunity for serious abuses, we will continue to see more oppression and said shedding of civilian blood. So this has been going on for a while. And I think the most recent one was nowhere to go in Gaza because there was an evacuation order from the Israeli military directive. But yes, Ginny, I think you needed to say something, or did you say something?
I mean, I wanted to also address kind of this sentiment that just because Hamas acts like total, I would say animals, but that would actually be a disgrace to animals to
To
call
animals themselves,
to
yeah.
associate them with this behavior. But the thing with Hamas's action is that does not excuse Israel doing extreme bombings, and killing massive amounts of innocent civilians that are caught in the crossfire in Gaza. And it also doesn't excuse, the previous evil doings that Israel has done, like the settlements on the West Bank, though
Yes.
that area is mostly controlled by Fatah, and but still, that does not excuse it either.
Yes.
Just because others are evil doesn't excuse your evil behavior. It's kind of like this mentality that, oh, the other side is evil, so I can do whatever.
Yes.
It's and also this side that, oh, I'm a victim, so I can't be a perpetrator. It's also false. You can both be a victim and victimized, but you can also be evil at the same time.
Yes.
One does not excuse the other.
And have you noticed that both sides in this conflict have played victim a lot too? If you've noticed throughout, not today, not this narrative, but like throughout the decades, if you as in your observation. And
I mean,
yes.
I mean the pro Israelis have always accused others of being like Hitler or being pro anti-Semitism if they criticize Israel's abhorrent behavior, and the pro-Palestinians have called you a pro-colonialism and pro whatever when you have criticized them.
Zionist.
Yes,
yes, word.
Yeah, pro-Zionist, pro-colonialist, and racist against Arabs and everything.
Yes. There's so much like dirt that's thrown on the other side, and and I think it's always so heated. Like a coworker was asking me, "What team are you on? Israel, Palestine?" I'm like, what the fuck do you mean a team? This is not a sports team.
I'm not on a team.
Yeah,
I'm not on a team. I'm here. I just want to prevent further innocent deaths.
Yes. It's like, what fucking hell is this? Like, this is not a sports game. Like, this is not a game.
This is something that I also am getting sick of generally, is that it's not just the West. I mean, it's the same thing in the Middle East. But people generally in modern times have begun to treat politics and everything like a team sport.
Right?
And they begin to, since they view these things from TV, it becomes kind of like fictionalized, and they begin to view it as a team sport.
Yes. And it takes away from the humanity of it. It takes away from, like, I know we're both agreeing, and it's like it sounds like a, what do you call it? What's that? An echo chamber. But still, like, we have to have some consensus on something like this, because this is such a divisive issue. We need to find, what do you call it? Ian Jen, yes, you're correct. Nothing excuses murder. There's a clear difference between targeting civilians specifically, and collateral damage. Yes,
I
those
do,
big.
I do. This I accept because there is actually one excuse where if children and babies are killed in Islamic law,
Yes,
and that is during sieges when you use catapults or try to
yes,
shoot arrows and you accidentally kill someone, then that accidental blood is not on your hand.
yeah.
But
I think,
that's kind of like a reasonable exception
yeah, I
if
by the way,
you consider medieval practices and
hmm,
contexts.
yeah. The thing is also, like, I want to address some of the comments. There are 50 Muslim countries. The Jews can have one, according to Hamas. Yes, according to Hamas, they feel that this what do you call it? Um, uh, this concept is not what do you call it? Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought because I'm also getting some messages too. But like, um, yeah, it's like there's this aim that Israel should not exist. For example, it doesn't excuse Israel, but right now, would it be better to quickly eliminate Hamas? I can't see the other way around. In my understanding, most Palestinians do. Yes, this is correct. I wanted
Yes,
to
but
say,
might I argue a thing how you could do this.
mm-hmm.
I mean,
Then go ahead.
there are other ways than just brute forcing it, and I do believe that Netanyahu is actually using this as an excuse to probably, or not probably, I'm just saying that in the worst case scenario, he might actually be using these events in order to commit some sort of extreme atrocity. But I would say that the best way to do this, instead of indiscriminate bombing of Gaza, would be to actually try to send in spies, because I'm sure Mossad has a lot of spies in Gaza,
Yes,
and do assassinations or kidnappings of these Hamas leaders.
and I'm also gonna show you Gazans.
You can actually do this in a lot less of an way, in a way that causes a lot less collateral damage.
One second, I did have an article. They've been kind of not showing that article. Um, this was in August of this year, and I know it's reported by Times of
The
Israel.
reanimator. I mean, the problem is that you say that, but the problem is also that Israel, Gaza, Palestine should have built a land and destination to be proud of. But every penny has been spent on revenge. You say that, but Israel has continued from its inception to build settlements on what was recognized as Palestinian land. So when they built things up, the Israelis would just come and take it.
Yeah, because
You
there
actually
has been a
made
lot.
things when you succeeded. You actually made things as being a target for confiscation. It's very easy to say build things up when someone is always going to steal it from you.
Yeah,
So
and
that isn't as easy as that either.
yeah, and what do you call
Israel,
it?
we should recognize one thing. I'm not saying that this makes any excuse for Palestinian wrongdoings, because I don't believe in power dynamics excusing certain behaviors. But Israel is still the stronger party here, the one with most of the power and the one with the most potential to do evil.
Yes, and I think there's the disbalance of power, right? So, um,
Yeah,
for
but it's not. It's not. When North Cyprus was invaded, the Greek Cypriots were displaced and went south to build a modern Cyprus. Could you show the comment, Mose,
oh,
of the
sure.
reanimator?
Yeah, when
Yes,
Cyrus went south to
yeah,
build a
yes, I just said it before it went up. But it isn't like that, because at least in that conflict, it stopped at least. And sure, it's still contested, but they didn't continue.
mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but I'm not saying that, it didn't continue. It wasn't just up in the air. Will they continue to invade after it had stopped? Now it's in, the Israel Palestinian conflict. It's kind of like this. Israel continues to just settle because Likud, the party, is in their original manifest, even said that the whole of Israel and Palestine would be under total Jewish control, and they would also take over areas belonging to modern day Jordan as well.
Yes.
Israel hasn't quit, they have constantly expanded.
Yes. So it's like one party is like invading, constantly invading, and the conflict has not been stopped by either side. So I think this is why this is the context we have to understand, because we can't make comparisons with other conflicts, because again, the Cyprus conflict is a different scenario. This is a very different scenario.
Yeah, because there are a lot of bad blood on the Cyprus conflict and a lot of bad things happened. But the thing is, it's still kind of like reached an equilibrium where both sides kind of stopped. Here it hasn't.
Yeah. 1 second. There's what do you call it?
No, but the Reanimator.
Oh,
It
Reanimator.
isn't like that. There are two ways to do it. The Greek Cypriots made the right choices. It is because Israel won't stop. This is like if the Turks would continue to just invade more and more parts of Cyprus, and then we just continue.
Yeah, and I think we should, it's we should.
The Palestinians, doesn't get any sort of here we have drawn the peace lines. Israel has just continued. I mean, if you look at the first manifest of Likud, they say explicitly that they are going to recreate the great, kingdom of David at its greatest extent, which includes Jordan, Lebanon, and areas of Syria.
And I think that's why there's the conflict with Lebanon too, which has opened on its front as well.
Yeah, because they kind of see it like this: if Israel isn't stopped there with Palestine, then they are going to continue.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, considering some of the rhetoric I'm hearing from the Israeli right and far right, I wouldn't blame them. Because I don't think Israel has any desire to stop with their expansionism.
Yeah. No, Reanimator, we just said, like, I think Ginny just said, sure, they weren't firing rockets, but like even with like Hamas not firing rockets, the West Bank, there has still been settler violence in the West Bank.
Yeah, look at the West Bank, where Fatah tried to reduce the violence from their side, and said, all right, we are just going to peacefully protest. Then Israel just decided, we are going to take it anyway.
Yeah,
so when peaceful methods don't work either. So this is just because the problem here is that Israel isn't going to stop if they are not forced to stop. And Hamas isn't going to stop if they are not forced to stop.
Yeah, and I feel like a bigger party needs to intervene, and I know it has to stop in some way. So that
I'm actually, worst case scenario.
Go ahead.
I mean, worst case scenario, Israel will sooner or later overextend. I mean, they will.
That's what I predict.
Because the thing is that if you continue to invade other countries, if you continue to expand, eventually people will get, aware of what your true intentions are. And the Reanimator, the Quran says, kill all Jews. Actually,
yeah,
I think that's more in the that's in the Sunnah,
in the Hadith.
Not
it's
in the Quran.
Hadith, not in the Quran.
It's in the Hadith, yes,
and
not in the Quran.
Think, in the Quran, it just says the Christians and Jews cannot be your friends; they're allies of each other. So that's chapter 5, verses 51 to 54. If you read that, So just again, context matters a lot too in this matter.
Yeah, because there is a context of intertribal war back there.
Yes,
But also you also have but what I'm trying to say here is that if Israel, for example, decides after they have, taken over either the entirety of the West Bank and Gaza, or done nearly that they will expand into Jordan and Lebanon, eventually people will just say, it's kind of obvious that Israel isn't no longer, doing this for defensive purposes.
Yeah, because
I feel I have this feeling when I look at the rhetoric from some of the more extreme Jews and some of the more extreme Israelis, that they aren't actually doing this just as a defensive reaction to terrorism. They are actually proactive, and they want greater, great empire, Israel.
Mhm.
Yes, it's true. They have been protesting the extreme
Yeah.
right takeover, but there is issues with this as well. But of course, the right wingers and also the far right tend to have more kids also in Israel, and you also see the fact that they tend to isolate, and also Israelis have become more and more radicalized over time. So you're also seeing them becoming more and more extreme.
Yeah, I think.
So
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
again, this doesn't excuse what Hamas or other terrorist
Yes.
groups have done towards Israel.
Yeah.
But we need to be aware that none of the parts in this conflict, none of the sides in this conflict are clean.
And I will say that,
Neither in intentions or in actions.
and I think there's also, I wanted to point out to Dudabay's previous question, that is that the Gazans were against Hamas, and there were protests. August 8, 2023. This is just a few months ago, hardly 2 months ago, that the Gazans on July 30th and then in August took a rare display of public anger against the Hamas regime. I was surprised how this was not covered by a lot of mainstream news outlets. And again, I know it's from Times of Israel, but like, we're gonna go with what we have. They were rallying under the slogan "We want to live," and this was similar to March and April 2019. And it is difficult for outside analysts to gauge how many people participated, since the video circulated on social media. Protests were scheduled, however, Hamas came prepared to thwart them. In all locations were announced that gatherings would take place. There was a heavy presence of civil and military security and police cars everywhere. A source inside Gaza told the Times of Israel. Whenever two people were walking to it, they were forbidden to stop on the street. After not even a minute would go
Might
on.
I ask one thing to one of our commenters? Al-Usa, what did you mean by that? If you walk through mud, you're gonna get dirty.
Oh, this comment? Yeah,
Yes.
but yeah, I'm just gonna,
Because that, sure, I mean, the charitable interpretation here is that if you're going to, do dirty actions, you're going to be dirty yourself. But the
yeah.
other interpretation that is a lot more sinister is kind of like you're referring to one of the sides as being kind of like mud.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm gonna go with the charitable.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Can we take up Al-Usa Akbar's comments? So
Yeah. Oh,
his
okay, yeah.
clarification. Yeah, I'm referring to. Thank you.
This I did review this. Remember, on the Reanimator, I did talk about Farfur, the character.
Yeah, you did.
But keep in mind, this was limited to Gaza, and also there is a lot of Hamas propaganda. We can't say the same thing for the West Bankers though, and again, like I'm showing you, a lot of Gazans were protesting Hamas. And this is an example of the not a single family has not suffered at the hands of Hamas one way or the other because of arrests or persecution. People are tired of having no opportunities and no way out. The only way to make a decent living is to be affiliated with Hamas. If you want to apply for a government job, you need a letter from your mosque, he explained. In the meantime, he said, Hamas leadership live in nice villas, drive expensive cars, and eat in fancy restaurants. And the top leaders, of course, don't live at Gaza at all.
Maybe we should take some of Al-Usa Akbar's other comments here just to clarify, because I kind of like feel bad now that I raised it. But
no, that's okay.
I kind of like feel sometimes I need to feel to ask these things of the people in the comments, because we don't want to, spread certain messages that could be, on the crossing certain red lines.
Yeah. Now, I think it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. So what's interesting here, what I was covering, is that many of the leaders don't even live at Gaza at all. So Israel bombing Gaza is going to fuck up with the civilians. A lot of, they're not even going to target some
many of them are in Qatar right now.
The what?
Many of them are in Qatar.
Yes, many of them are in Qatar, or they're living in other countries that we don't know of the location. And it's definitely like
the reanimator, leaving those children to grow up hating Jews, a brainwashed generations. To be fair, I have seen Israeli children being in schools where they are some of the Jewish traditions regarding Hajj and the Arabs. And kind of like, citing these that talk about how, how Ishmael's sons are to be the slaves and beneath the, children of Isaac and all of this stuff.
In Israeli,
yes,
propaganda. Yeah. So it's not just the Gazan propaganda. There's also Israeli propaganda too against Palestine.
I will be fair and say that it's more on the others. Probably more on the other side, more brainwashing on the Palestinian side due to various reasons. But there is no one that is clean here.
Yeah, and again, I think with also,
what also is pretty surprising?
Yeah.
In total, since 1948, you had killings before as well, with Irgun and everything else that happened before Israel was established. But since 1948 to today, sure, you have had a lot of people displaced, a lot of Palestinians that were forced to flee. But in direct deaths, there hasn't actually been more than between 30 to 50,000 in total on both sides.
Right.
To put this in context, we think that the Ukrainian war, with the higher estimates, have killed about 500,000 people.
Yes.
On all sides. So, this is a conflict, despite having gone on for a little more than
for decades,
for almost 80 years.
Yeah,
a little bit less than that. Despite that, it still is it's a matter of fact that it's still 10 times less people that have died in this conflict than in the Ukraine war.
Yeah, and so less people have died in the Palestinian conflict, as you're referring to?
Yes.
Overall. Okay.
Yes.
In terms of numbers,
I mean, it's 10 times more that have died in the current Ukraine war than in this conflict.
Yeah, I can kind of see that, because the Russian military has more weapons and more.
They are also straight up just more brutal, but
yeah,
and you also have a side that can fight back and everything else. So you have a lot of factors here, but still, it also shows that, compare like a little bit less than than 2 years of fighting to this
The entirety of the conflict.
to a conflict that has gone on for like 75 years almost.
Yeah.
So this isn't a high intensity conflict, except for like the recent events. Those were actually pretty much the most extreme that this conflict has gotten.
Okay. Dudabite says, okay, ultimately blame it on the Romans. They created Palestine, caused Jewish diaspora, promoted Christian culture, which spread through the Arabian Peninsula and Islam, and then became an offshoot that conquered Palestine. Fall of Ottoman, Holocaust caused Aliyah to Palestine. It is too simplistic.
I would say still too simplistic, but even then, this kind of reminds me. Have you seen the Dudabite? Have you seen that a sketch by Monty Python where they ask, "What have the Romans ever done for us?" It kind of reminded me of that.
No! Oh no! Yeah.
But still, I mean, the issue is also that a lot of the people, there have been genetic studies that show that the Palestinians are actually genetically close to the people that lived in even pre-Roman time there. Sure, you have a lot of Arabic genetics that show that people did migrate into it too, but mostly it is actually locals. So the population is still mostly the same if you look at various like the G1A gene.
Oh, of course. Instead of a face biting, now it's face orange biting it. Damn it! Damn it! We gotta stop with these oranges, and these shapes. But yeah, what do you call it? Like I said, like to Jude's previous questions, there are Gazans who are against Hamas. That is, and Hamas had quickly.
What Jen Wallis says, we should dismantle NATO. To be honest, it's not needed. What does this have to do with
the conflict?
Anything? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's not relevant to the conflict now, because it's only like NATO hasn't interfered in this conflict so far. So yeah, there have been marches throughout Gaza, protesters chanting shame against the regime, demonstrated with Palestinian flags. Some were tearing up the Hamas flag. In some cases, some people reportedly burned the group's banner before security services quickly intervened to break up the gathering. Now, forced caught off guard, while most riots ended peacefully, a few incidents were recorded in Khan Yunis where police reportedly destroyed cell phones of bystanders who were filming, and confrontations were set to break out in several instances between Hamas supporters and opponents. So there is like internal conflict within Gaza, which, again, this is something that a lot of people never take into account, that there are Palestinians who are not sympathetic to Gaza. And Hamas has been trying its best to like shut down any form of like display of activists being against Hamas. So this has been happening in Gaza. So there's a various anti-Palestinian political condemn the terror response. There's different unions like the IFIDA, the socialists, the smaller parties affiliated with PLO. So and of course we have the PLO against Hamas as well. Again, this is an older article, but still, like, this is something we under a regime that does not allow for political dissent, electricity has become a rallying cause for citizens to express grievances. Gaza, with a population of over 2.3 million, receives much of its electricity supply from Israel, with a single power plant local supplying the rest. But demand far outweighs the supply, leading to severe limitations and shortages. Hamas has repeatedly blamed Gaza's infrastructure woes on the blockade imposed by Israel since 2007, which has crippled its economy, imposed severe restrictions on imports, and left the enclave isolated from the rest of the world. Now, Israel did Yes.
The Judabides asked something. What was the percentage of groups and religions of Palestine region before Arab conquests? I mean,
Again,
this. Can you show the comment, Mose?
yeah. What
So
was the
that everyone-
percentage prior to the Muslim conquests or the Arab conquests? I think this would have been different, but again, I don't have the numbers per se on me.
Yes, I mean the thing is that we can't really get the numbers because I don't think the
Yeah.
sources exist to get clear numbers. I mean they might exist because the Byzantines did have enormous archives, and sometimes you do get surprising, things that have
They did
survived a
have
long
the
time.
the
But
Romans.
the thing is that
yeah,
it's
a lot of census.
I mean I don't know this, so I can't say that it does not exist, but it probably does not exist. But I can't say for sure. But I do know that there did exist a lot of, still even in late Eastern Roman time, there did exist Jews there. There did exist several sects of Christianity. You had the Rassanids that actually had governorship of that area.
Yes. Like these were Christian Arabs. Keep in mind, Christian Arabs that resided in the region.
And they had gone there before Islam. So Arabs were even present in the area before the Islamic conquests.
Oh yeah, long before the conquests.
Yes.
So
I actually made a video about the Rassanids.
Yes. Do check out Jinny's channel, by the way, about the Ghassanid rulers. It was a very well done video. Very interesting history topics that Culture Jinny does cover. So do give him some love and some likes. By the way, Allah's Azza Akbar. Mossad spent decades capturing Nazi war criminals around the world. Shouldn't they be able to capture some of these Hamas dickheads from Qatar? And again, my question is, do they even want to do that?
The problem is that Qatar kind of like is in the Iranian sphere. They've kind of like an agreement there.
Yeah.
So it could, set off a war if they did that. So there are those issues too.
That's my question. We're anti-Hamas. Why haven't they handed over Hamas now? Why do they allow Hamas? That's the thing, Jen. They don't have the power. They don't have the manpower to do that. They don't have the weapons. They're only civilians. And
Hamas is also, the problem is that everyone isn't open by being Hamas, even in Gaza. I've been told this by people from actually Gaza, that you do not know who is supporting who is supporting. If you're pro like Fatah or is even a socialist or something that don't like Hamas because Hamas are Islamists, you are keeping quiet because you do not know who are supporting them either. And they have killed people. They have killed Palestinians too.
Yeah.
That oppose them.
Yeah. So if anything, like again, Reanimator, you're also ignoring this too. Again, what we just said, you're ignoring this. You never know who's a member of Hamas, and it's almost like again, I can make a comparison. It's like being like it's.
I've talked with open communists after they left the area.
Yes.
And they say that it's horrifying being there.
Yeah. So we have also ex-Muslims from the area, and they have said these stories. Again, Jen, we're trying to say this. It doesn't, like you never know who's the member, and who can get you killed. Again,
I mean, it's the same thing why Germans after the guy with the funny mustache had taken complete control over Germany. Why they didn't speak out? Because you had something, you had a secret police that could take you away.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of, your family could, report you. Others could, attack you.
I am showing you an article. This was one of the big mass protests that did happen inside Gaza. So it's not just like, these voices do come out from time to time.
Yes.
They have re-emerged and they have persisted. But again, either the media silent, they're never reported by media sources, Hamas silences them, and they have to play it safe too. And sometimes they're killed, let's face it, or they're put in jails. So you are kind of in, it's a very horrifying situation that you're putting yourself in.
And it also doesn't help that a lot of Palestinians also feel like, because UN peacekeepers can only be placed in conflict zones where both parts of the conflict, both sides of the conflict, agree to it, because most of the time there are some exceptions. The fact of the matter why it could be done in, for example, the Balkans, where that there it had become genocidal, clearly genocidal, in a way that it I would say that Israel have actually done a slow genocide, a cultural genocide, and displacement genocide, but they didn't do it in the same way that, for example, the Serbs were doing in the Balkans, which prevented the same sort of interaction. And the thing with Gaza is that you can't, well, if you haven't lived or been in a dictatorship, you can't imagine how dangerous it can be to speak out.
And it is very dangerous to speak out.
Yeah. And you also have to remember that a lot of Palestinians feel that they have no hope. I mean, the other Palestinians that, feel that they don't want Hamas, what's the alternative? Other sides that might, either be extremely corrupt, like, the accusations leveled towards Fatah, or even more radical than Hamas, or they might be, just puppets of, Israeli interest, or be seen as puppets because they want peace and, they want, just give concessions.
Yeah, and I think there have been a lot of Palestinians who did leave the area and did claim refugee status in places like Europe and also like the United States and Canada as well. So we have dealt with a lot of cases of Palestinians who were able to get out, and honestly, they have tried. They did try to move to places like Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. But Kuwait and Saudi Arabia or any of the Gulf states never give them citizenship. Or they don't give them any rights. They're treated as like second class citizens. So they are stateless. So the stateless status is, you have nowhere to go. So that's why, we have a high number of Palestinian refugees, even more so than the Syrian refugees, actually, which I can argue. So we do have, what do you call it? This is the result of the conflict itself. So I was also gonna there, even in Lebanon, like there's discrimination against Palestinians, and I think they don't provide citizenship. Egypt discriminates against Gazans and whatnot. Jordan only provides temporary passports. Jordan used to give citizenship, but not anymore, since the king decided to distance himself from the matter. And yep, the king said he doesn't want refugees in the country, and Egypt rejects them. Exactly. So Egypt and Jordan have actually pulled away from this matter too, and and I don't think what do you call it? Yeah, yes. So what are your thoughts on Egypt refusing entry and blocking the Israel border? Will they get a backlash? And I'm surprised that they haven't gotten backlash, but it is reportedly fact too, because Egypt is also part of the blockade on Gaza too.
Might I also add some context to why they are doing it in Egypt?
Yes, you may.
They have had a lot of conflicts on the Sinai Peninsula right now because they wanted to, tax the area, and people rebelled, kind of like. So they have had low intensity conflicts there with various tribal groups, and they don't want a lot of Palestinian refugees to make it even more unstable.
Well, that, and also Egypt,
and also in Jordan. Remember that the Palestinians tried to actually try to coup the government back in the past of Jordan.
Yeah, I think the PLO members tried to do that.
Yes.
members of the PLO.
So
Like,
there is kind of like that too.
yeah, this was pretty ugly, and I
So,
think
so there is. I mean, people always think that the Arab world is one
homogeneous.
homogeneous mass, but it isn't. It's several groups, several, peoples that speak
Yes,
various dialects of Arabic, but they
yeah,
aren't the
I think
same in political interests or in
yeah, yeah.
allegiances.
Yeah, keep in mind the Egyptian military and the Muslim Brotherhood, as well as Jamia al Azhar, are in a weird conflict with each other. And there's also the issue of, I think either was it
That too.
Hamas or PLO, which was an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, if I'm not mistaken. One of these two groups is an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Hamas began as an offshoot of
Yes,
the Muslim Brotherhood. Yes.
Hamas. So I think they just
Hamas began as a charity, actually.
Interesting. Interesting. And then it became a
So
militant.
back then, actually, the Israeli government actually paid them things because they thought that would subvert the influence of Arab nationalism and divide them in the beginning. Then they developed into an armed group.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm just going to also share something as well. It's a list of articles that I have that I had from Gaza itself too. So this is happening even throughout this year. I'll just put a timeline of sorts. So there were children of Gaza being traumatized. There was articles about heavy fighting in May 10th, 2023, earlier this year. May 9th as well. There was militants and civilians. Both of them were killed in airstrikes. So we also had Gaza was bombed after a Jenin assault. This was an assault in the West Bank. So there was an assault in the West Bank, and then Israel also attacked Gaza at the same time. This was on July 5th, 2023 of this year. Then there was a halt of exports and imports too from Gaza, that is. So this was a halt. Then the families were not, there were destroyed homes that families were not able to. The Israeli Navy did shoot a fisherman, that is, and there were 2 abducted on the September 11th, 2023. So the incident like this happened. There's also the sewage facility in Gaza that collapsed as well too. The military groups, there have been exercises by militant groups. So I think they were preparing for something in September 12th. There was children that were deprived of health care. Israel denied life-saving healthcare to 2 Palestinian children on September 12th. There was flooding as well too. There were riots inside Gaza where 3 Palestinians were killed. So September 13th, there was an explosion where 5 Palestinians in Gaza were killed. It was caused by a mishandle. Let me just see the article as well too. So
it's just too bad that we don't have beast bruises here.
Yeah, and again, the yeah. So this was a what do you call it?
It's another channel. I'm actually active on his Discord.
Yeah, it's
he makes videos about this conflict from a Palestinian perspective, but still he makes very good content.
Yeah. There's also the explosion that took during a demonstration, marking the anniversary of Israel's withdrawal. Like Israeli army, which has fought 4 years, 4 wars with Hamas, denied involvement. Again, there was denial of involvement. There was a mishandled bomb. So this has been happening. This has been happening for a while too. So what was the comment? In Western countries, Muslims have been very loud. Did anyone see the Jews chant in Australia? Imagine. Yeah, I don't know what was that happen? Did that happen, Ginny?
That I've seen that.
Oh yeah,
they did chant it, and I've also seen similar here in Sweden where they have been screaming "Oqtulu al-Yahud" or "Al-Mautu lil-Yahud wal-Kufar."
Wow.
Kill the Jews and the death for the Jews and the unbelievers.
Yeah, it has definitely been.
So they have shouted those things as well here in Sweden, but still, I would say that you will always have idiots doing that. And it
Yeah.
is an issue that they are actually allowed to do this sort of incitement, where other groups are not allowed to do it in reverse. But I don't think that you should actually shout into those things. I do think that those are incitement to, criminal acts like killing or and I do think that those should be prosecuted.
Absolutely. Like, I feel that that amounts to hate speech, that is.
The problem is that it's hateful. The problem is that it's calls direct for murder,
Exactly.
for crime. It's incitement.
It's an
I
incitement
don't
of
like the term hate speech, because I don't think that hate should be
Mhm.
disallowed. What should be disallowed is the breaking of current law
Yes. Yes.
and
No,
incitement to breaking current law. And that was what I saw,
right.
both there in Australia and also what I've seen here in Sweden. And it's an issue when
Oh boy.
certain people are persecuted for doing this and certain people are not. Because I can agree that they are kind of, treated with silk gloves currently.
Yes.
And it will piss people off, which unfortunately, this behavior of acting like this also turns people against the Palestinian cause, because the Palestinian cause is actually, legitimate.
Yeah.
But
They
this
want
behavior is not good.
Yeah, and it destroys the legitimacy of the movement itself too.
Yes. That was what
And
I meant.
yeah, I did want to show an article, not an article, but like a video that we should respond to, it really pissed me off though. This video, it's a pro-Israel video, but it pissed me off really heavily. Let me just share it.
All right, I've also spoken with extreme Israelis as well.
Yeah, so again,
and they ain't a better.
Okay, this
react. Okay. And I don't blame these people for saying free Palestine or for thinking that what they're doing is in the name of human rights. I get it. For years, there has been a targeted campaign to brainwash you to think that Palestinians live in an open air prison. And
this is complete denial of reality from the get-go.
Yes.
Complete denial of reality.
Gaza, that there's an apartheid. This is not true. Have you
fucking idiot.
You ever been to Israel? Like, do you even know what you're talking about? There is no open air prison in Gaza. Okay?
Yeah, complete denial.
Okay. The very same border crossing called the Erez border crossing, which the Palestinians used to infiltrate Israel and massacre 900 people and counting. That very same border
crossing. Here.
Yeah.
They didn't do it at the border crossing. What they did was that they took, construction equipment and managed to break through the fences.
Yeah, so they didn't use the border crossing.
You can even see the videos of them doing this, or where they blast holes in the concrete walls as well.
Yeah.
So because a large concrete wall isn't going to stand up from a targeted explosive.
Yeah. So if anything, like, this is pretty much pro-Israel propaganda.
Yes, it is.
Exists because that's where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians leave Gaza every single day to work, and where food, supply.
Okay, first of all, they have to obtain an ID card and they have to obtain approval. It's a longer process to get out, to go work. And again, there are some Gazans who do work in Israel to make extra money. So this is real, but the bureaucracy and the documentation is super long and heavy. So it takes time. So it's not like she's presenting it as though it's easy. It's not easy.
And all civilian necessities are brought in every day.
Okay, I just showed an article where there was a blockade too. A lot of necessities were blocked.
Yes.
Are imported into Gaza every day. That's why there is this.
Well. Yeah.
They have blocked medicine and,
yes,
things that, medical equipment as well. Because, that is also just there to actually kill, slowly kill people.
Yeah, to slowly. So it's very brutal.
This border crossing. Do you know which border is actually not open? It's the Egyptian border. Have you ever asked yourself, why does Egypt not allow the Palestinians to come in and out? Like, why?
And I think we addressed this question too. And again, Egypt is, of course, guilty for not like helping Palestinians. But at the same time, I think, Ginny, you provided context. It was the conflict that the Egyptian military has. And I think we also talked about it with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah,
the,
yes.
what do you call it?
Egypt has a lot on its hands right now.
Yeah, so Egypt, this is the last thing that's
and also you need to remember that that's the border to Egypt. That's the border. The Gazans are surrounded by these borders because Israel expanded to those borders from 1948.
Yep, and of course
they took the territory and made those borders themselves. That's different.
And keep in mind the Gazan like crossing, the Rafah crossing in Egypt, you have to have an ID, or like you have to have like there's very also strict limitations on the border itself. If you want to leave Gaza, for example, you would have to leave through Egypt. So there is that route. But again, lots of paperwork, lots of bureaucratic bullshit, and lots of like barriers to exit, for example. So Egypt in itself is not completely innocent, but also, like we said, it has its hands full too. So let's continue with this nonsense.
Hey, have you ever asked yourself, why? Despite what you've been told, it's the Israelis who have been looking out for the Palestinian civilians. It's the Israelis who have been supplying water, electricity, gas. Did you know that
you are the ones that have taken it off and actually you can actually, this process actually makes a very good video about the water crisis that the Gazans are facing, because what the Israelis have done are that they have actually taken water sources strategically and dried them out in order to empty them.
Yeah, so it's like it's okay. Even with the Egyptian thing, what she's also doing, keep in mind, this is also an example of whataboutery or whataboutism, where it's like, hey, what about these guys? So I can excuse my shitty behavior because they're being shitty. So
yes, exactly.
it's a method of deflection, for example. And also, like, I've heard this propaganda about that Israel provides like healthcare and blah blah blah. Well, again, there's also like these lands were taken from them, and also the water supply was cut short too. So you've kind of made them dependent on like there's
your goodwill. Yes, when you make someone dependent upon you, and then act as if you're good because you have shown some mercy by giving something. It isn't them that are doing wrong. It's you.
Yeah.
That are making them dependent upon your mercy.
Yeah.
With quotation marks.
It's almost like, it's almost sounding like Allah and Yahweh or something like that. But yeah, I know the comments are weird.
2005, there were Israeli settlements, cities, and towns inside Gaza. And in 2005, the Israelis unilaterally, meaning without a peace agreement, left Gaza, disengaged. Why, do you ask? Why would Israel do this? Israel did this because they wanted to show a gesture for peace, to allow the Palestinians to govern themselves and thrive. And you know what happened in return? The Hamas government, instead of taking money that came through agreements from Qatar, from Iran, and from, yes, you, people donating to Palestinian causes in Europe and North America, they took that money and they funded weapons. They didn't fund infrastructure, schools. No, you know what? They built schools so that they could put their weapons in them. They built mosques so they could use them to shoot rockets from those mosques. So since 2005, Gaza has not been occupied by Israel. So anyone who makes that
it has been surrounded by Israel, and also like it's kind of ignoring what the West.
It has been under siege.
Yeah, it's a siege. Also, the thing is, like, yes, it is true that the money that was taken from Qatar and from Iran was used to make weapons. This part is true. It's like partially this is actually very true that Hamas did use this to make weapons, that is. And also keep in mind, I think there was an agreement in 2005 that forced like them to like move the settlements back. This was only in 2005 because there was going to be elections in 2007 because there was also a power struggle between Hamas and the PLO as well too. So you kind of ignoring the little context in the bigger picture, that is.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things being ignored here.
Claim is lying. And instead of receiving peace, we received so much terrorism, rockets,
You are the one that has been lying here, by the way, woman.
paragliders, and massacres, and rape, and kidnapping.
I mean, the Israeli military is also guilty of this too. I don't know. It's like, it's again, this is also the clear example of like playing victim too. That, oh, we're so
Yes.
gracious and now we're playing victim.
And for all those crying apartheid, there is no apartheid in Israel. Israel is made up of 25% Israeli Arabs who have complete equality under the law in Israel. And many of them even serve in the IDF. The Palestinians that you claim have
There are also Arabs on Israeli land that don't have citizenship because they just expanded the borders into it and never gave it.
Yeah, they don't actually provide citizenship to all, and also like there's also people stuck in refugee camps too.
Yes.
And it's like the refugee camps are like, the conditions are horrendous in the refugee camps. So
So that's true. That too. You do have, but most refugee camps are also kind of like outside of this. But I would say that there are also people that actually live in Israel and don't have citizenship
yes,
because they just expanded there and took it over, but never granted it to them. And she says, "Oh, there are Arab." But what she also fails to mention is that some of those Arabs are in fact actually Arabic-speaking Jews.
yes. You also
And you also have the fact that some of those Arabs that aren't Jews are either Arabic groups like the Druze that Israel has made various alliances with. So they are kind of like or other groups, because there were some other families or groups that they did make accords with as well.
and the Druze, you bring up an interesting point about the Druze as well too, and also like the Jewish Arabs as well too. So that's an interesting point that I actually think
But
of as
they,
well.
they aren't all the same, and there are a lot of things here that actually complicate this. And also, there are a lot of Arabs still, as I said before, that don't have citizenship but were simply taken over.
Yes, yes. So there's again, she's spouting like half truths.
D.
No.
Baudrillard says Putin is blaming the USA for this. Anyone surprised? No. Putin wants to do everything in order to discredit the West, in order to take away the focus upon what he is doing in Ukraine. And what he is also, I mean, the thing with Russia is that they just want to drag down the West, or rather the USA, as their main political rival, so that they can continue with their expansionism in Eastern Europe. This is also, by the way, when people asked that before in the chat and said that NATO isn't necessary. NATO is very necessary still, because if NATO didn't exist, then Russia would have invaded the Baltics, probably also continued to Finland and invade Poland and try to, reconstruct either the old Soviet Union with its satellite states or the Russian Empire.
Yes, yes.
Aren't Druze Shia?
Oh yeah, this
Yes,
no.
They kind of are.
Yeah.
It depends upon how you categorize them, but they are actually a sect of Ismaili Shia
Yes.
that diverged a lot from even mainstream.
It means, and not only that, they've
Ismailis.
also become a religion of their own too. Keep in mind, like according to some scholars, they've become a religion of their own.
They reanimate no rubbish that is NATO propaganda.
Again, I'm sorry. Like, if you're trying to spout propaganda, Russian propaganda or pro-Israeli propaganda, I can't help you. Again, we're just assessing.
We aren't going to mute you, since you do not, say anything that is against like the law or anything. But we will just say that we will disagree with you, because Russia. I don't want to make this about Russia, But I will just say this. Russia has continuously made threats against their neighbors, done sorties, done kidnappings on other territories. In Estonia with Huar being kidnapped there. They have also made threats against Sweden and regarding Gotland in 2008, where they demanded that we would host their military bases there. We denied it, and then they made threats about possible future consequences. And they have made statements about Finland not deserving their independence and sovereignty. They have made their former prime minister have also made statements about the Baltics needing to be reincorporated into the Russian sphere or into the Russian state. So no, it isn't NATO propaganda. Russia is an aggressive state that threatens Europe, and also Russia also pays a lot of money into various regimes in the Middle East, for example, and aids them. For example, both Iran and they have also contacts in with Algeria, which is why Morocco also sent some of their old tanks to Ukraine.
Yeah. And by the way, let's continue with this.
No rights under Israeli law are not Israeli citizens. It's like saying to somebody in America, you need to give civil rights to somebody from France. That makes no sense.
First of all, you took over their land, technically. They didn't come to you.
So anybody who's saying this really shows that they know nothing about the situation. So again, when you scream Free Palestine, I get why you're saying it, because you've been fed lies. World, wake up. Read history. Come to Israel. See for yourself. We are dealing with terrorism. Okay, so
this one was a bit like very cringe because, like, you're dealing with terrorism, but at the same time, like, you did take over the land too. So it's like you're kind of ignoring so many facts, like so many of the atrocities committed by the Israeli state, that is. So, what do you call it? It's definitely like, denying a lot of. Like,
I don't know what the reanimators, motives are here in the comment section. For example, this latest comments of NATO went to Iraq, Libya, Syria, and Blair, Bush, Cameron, and Clinton are warmongers. They should be jailed. That has nothing to do with actually Russian aggression. They can have done, NATO can have done wrong, and the USA can have done it also. But Russia can also have done wrong, and also NATO has still not done permanent land annexations like Russia.
Also, Reanimator,
and
we're not pro-Hamas. I'm just going to say this. We're not pro-Hamas. Israel does have a right to exist, yes.
And, yes, I mean, it has been so long that Israel isn't going to go away because people have even been born there under the state. Exactly. So I don't think that any solutions that cause for the destruction of Israel is possible, or even something we want at this stage. Yes.
Yeah, it's an established state. So why would we be against Israel's right to exist? That's just dumb to ask. So it's like, I love that this is like kind of like, the thrown in question that is. There's a question, there's something a lot of people have been asking me, is that why does the US, or why do countries like Canada, US support Israel or enable Israel, for example, or have ties with Israel that are stronger with Hamas, well, again, compared to Palestine? There's a reason for it, and it's not to do with ideology at all. There's nothing to do with ideology, at least in my opinion, that is. It has more to do with, drumroll, economic ties. Economy. Yes. So
yes, and lobbying and also cultural ties and such. Yes. Because we need to remember that a lot of views are from various European and the Western countries,
Yes,
and
yes,
have ties there as well. So
yes. There's more like
a lot of Israeli use. I mean,
I feel like the business aspect holds the bigger one, because the free trade agreement was established in 1985, and it was the first trade agreement entered by the United States. Since its entry, it has increased tenfold to $49 billion in 2016. This is from the U.S. Embassy in Israel, by the way. So we're not making this up. Like reopening the market to U.S. beef. U.S. beef is exported. Israel is now invest $24 billion in the United States, nearly triple to what it was a decade earlier. So there's a lot of Israeli investments in the United States as well. U.S. firms or companies have been a part of the startup nation story, with U.S. companies establishing 2/3 or of the more than 300 foreign invested research and development centers in Israel. Israeli firms, meanwhile, represent the second largest source of foreign listings on the NASDAQ after China, and more than Indian, Japanese, and South Korean firms combined. So there's a lot of cooperation agreements, variety of cooperative agreements, public health and medical science, renewable energy, space and cooperation, transportation, civil aviation, etc. There's a big commercial relationship. Again, we are also seeing a steady governance made on local state. As in, the California Agriculture Secretary traveled to Israel mid-26 to explore the cooperation in climate smart agriculture. So there is the link. There's this very, very strong business link, that is. Economic and commercial relation now expands to IT, biotech, life sciences, healthcare solutions, energy, pharmaceuticals, food, beverage. So you can kind of see why the American or the United States would be so interested in Israel. And it has more to do with business, more to do with investments, that are established in Israel, that is. So this is why the United States tends to enable Israel, and tends to kind of turn the other way when it's Israel's war crimes, for example. So there's cooperation on water issues. There's 9,000 jobs in Massachusetts. Israeli-found businesses have generated 9,000 jobs in Massachusetts. So there's joint development programs. There's a lot of research and development too. And since it's 1977, so this relationship is deep. It's kind of like a love story, but money love story, that is. So this is why you have a lot of people have asked, why does the United States continue to enable Israel? Well, here's your answer. Ginny, do you have any comments on that?
My comment about this is that there is you also have the right wing, certain sections of the right wing in the USA that think that the establishment of Israel will bring forth the end days as well.
Yeah.
So you do have that reason too, but I think that is less than geopolitical and geostrategical reasons for supporting Israel.
Yeah, there's also something like this that I come across in social media a lot, because in social media, it's very heavy, lots of pride. We are fighting human animals. This is this dude over here. He literally says, I have ordered, the Israeli Minister of Defense says, I have ordered a complete siege on Gaza. No electricity, no food, no fuel, no water. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals and we will act accordingly. This is what the Israeli Minister of Defense is saying. So this is the kind of stuff that we are this is the kind of propaganda we're dealing with. Also, we also have this propaganda too. Here are terms to avoid. Some people say, instead of calling the status quo between, it's better to go what it is, the Israel occupation of Palestine. It is a conflict. Let's face it. It's an occupation, yes, but it's also a conflict too. So this is what I disagree with. This one was interesting. The term too preaches unrealistic utopian possibility has become a euphemism for gradual segregation and partition of Palestine. What do you think, Jin?
I mean, I think that there are so many political reasons and things involved in this conflict that you can't often reduce it to one reason. The establishment of Israel from the beginning had to do with also with the Holocaust and feelings of guilt about that too. You also have a lot of other groups that have tried to establish Israel before the Zionist movement from the 19th century, for example. So there are a lot of factors here.
Yeah, and I know like there's the two-state solution. Now they're saying that it's an unrealistic utopian possibility. Like, is it unrealistic though? The two-state solution?
I don't think it's entirely unreasonable.
Yeah.
I think it's actually most probable because you aren't going to get one state here with equal citizens. It's the Israelis are never going to allow that.
And also there's annexation expansion. It is an annexation and expansion. Our minds immediately alter to these use of word. They really are segregation, colonize, apartheid, partitioning, and stealing land. I do agree with the stealing of land. I do agree with all these the terminology, but also it is an annexation and expansion too. So there's like this is the kind of stuff that I read. I'm like, oh, what are you trying to say? Barbarian and uncivilized. Yeah, it's you don't need to dehumanize Palestinians, but yes, someone in the comments did say barbarian is the perfect term to describe Hamas and what they did. The only people who are insulted by it are the ones who equate Hamas with Palestinian, though they represent Palestine. If we can't condemn Hamas, then we might as well stop saying ours is a religion of peace. I do agree with this comment. That you're not equating Hamas with representing all of Palestine too. So this is the kind of stuff that I have been seeing, online. There's this person too. I think Jenny. Okay, so Jenny, be prepared to cringe, but you can agree with this too. You're free to.
A lot of posts online, but particularly there have been some from people that I follow regarding their stance of centrism and neutrality. I hate the word neutral on what's currently happening in Palestine. And I think that it's a pretty harmful ideology. Like, look, I can't say that it's factually incorrect that innocent people are dying on both sides because they are, right? But the fact that both sides are wrong and that there shouldn't be a war, war is wrong. Like, it's just a harmful ideology, honestly.
This is something I disagree with, but what do you think, Jenny?
I disagree here too, but it depends upon context and arguments. So let's continue.
Because it just shows me that you haven't deeply read into the history of Palestine and the Nakba and what's been going on for the past 75 years. And in the context of South Asians, it really is comparable to Kashmir. And I feel like perhaps you might have a better understanding of Kashmir, but it's really not different to what's happening in Palestine. Also, there are a lot of free resources online.
I don't say it's comparable to Kashmir situation, only because the Kashmir issue is a very different conflict, and it's between two different states that are able to fight each other, so to speak. So I don't think it's a clear cut. And also, Pakistan has been responsible for enabling terror groups in Kashmir. So it's a bit, and also the Indian government has oppressed the Kashmiri people. But I think this is a very different scenario and context compared to the Palestine and Israel conflict. I wouldn't compare the two. But yeah, Jenny, do you have any thoughts?
No, continue.
All right.
Shared one, The Question of Palestine by Edward Said. I just shared that link. That's available to you. If you Google it, there's just so much literature and so many papers, and just read the poet Mahmoud Darwish. You'll understand the struggle and the longing and the melancholy that has been part of Palestinian identity for 75 years. This ignorance, it upsets me honestly to see this, especially from people that I know. And I think that the state of Israel, for example, the state of Israel is far more technologically advanced because they are given more resources by these rich global north, Western governments that have been supporting them for years.
This is actually, I agree with. Like, they have been empowered by the Western governments.
Because what Zionism is essentially it is a reproduction of the extremely anti-Semitic violence that a lot of European Jews experienced during the time of the Holocaust. And prior to that too, there was a lot of anti-Semitism on the rise. So, that's what happens, right? The reproduction of violence. And it is a response to violence and oppression. It's to resist, and it is resistance. And that is what the Palestinians are doing now and have been for a very long time. They're resisting that violence. And I think that it's essential to see that it is not equal war whatsoever, because one side has all the means to colossally destroy, and the other is doing the best that it can to fight for its dignity, and its integrity, because they have essentially been kicked out of their homes, their ancestral homes. I have seen videos with my own eyes of settlers seizing ancestral homes from Palestinians and laughing in their faces because they believe that it belongs to them now. And if that isn't inhumane, then I don't know what is. And, just the amount of children that have been taken by, Israeli missiles and soldiers, the IDF, the kinds of atrocities that they've committed, the amount of children who've been, imprisoned. Ahmed Mansara, if you look him up, that's an example of just the kind of heinous crimes that Israel has committed against Palestinian children. I'm just going to finish this off by saying that if you look at history, South Asian history, particularly where the Indian subcontinent is concerned, during British colonial rule, then there were a lot of freedom fighters, a lot of movements that were anti-colonial, that were resisting the violence that was imposed by British colonial rule, such as the famines, such as just the classist sort of violence, turning Indians against each other, all of that. And whether it's Hamas or whether it's Palestinians themselves, resistance is justified in scenarios of long-term oppression, settler colonialism, occupation, displacement. If you're able to perhaps read or listen to or watch more resources on the topic from Palestinian voices, then hopefully you'll be able to understand this resistance. So I'm seeing.
Okay, so what do you think, Jenny?
I mean, this is just, again, it doesn't excuse attack. The attack on Israeli civilians is not resistance, like the Bodrio says in the comment here. Show it, Moose. Thank you.
Wait, where is it?
In the comments section.
Sorry, 1 second. So, which comment? D. Boudreau's comment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the attack on Israel is not resistance. Yeah, and this is where I kind of disagree with on this individual, where, like, yeah, you can attack military targets. You don't have to kill civilians. And like you said earlier, they're technically going even against the Sunnah, if you think about it. So it's
Yes.
like, yeah. Yeah, it wasn't exactly
it also wasn't a military campaign.
They didn't actually capture or secure any of the outposts. Yeah, they didn't capture any of the military outposts. They instead targeted civilians, that is. And I know you guys also probably saw, like, the festival. There's the German-Israeli girl who was, like, her body was shown on the media, that is. So someone who just came there for a festival, and then, you saw their body, and then there's, like, fighters celebrating. I won't show that because, again, it's quite disturbing. So yeah, it's the frustrating thing, at least with what it is now. It's that I feel like there's a lot of the it's become a bit now difficult for a lot of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza for now, just because of Hamas's actions. Now it's become more difficult for their position, that is. It's actually caused more problems for them than already there were. So, but yeah, it's definitely I do hope that it ends, but, like, I don't see it ending anytime soon. Also, in the online, hi Puya. So it definitely, yeah. We all saw that video, and not for nothing, when they rolled it, how they did the crowd react. Yeah, Hamas supporters were like joyous on that occasion too, and there was, I think Jenny pointed out, there was a lot of like women who were even assaulted too. So this was quite brutal. That is
I
on
mean,
this.
this entire conflict, both sides just want to, they want the conflict to be, the more extreme parts on both sides of the Palestinian and Israelis just want this conflict to continue.
Yeah. And there's also this post, again, this is, I'm also going to address those observing the Israel Palestine conflict. And this is also from Instagram too, where you this person has said, stop asking me about Israel Palestine. Better yet, stop asking anyone with the social media what they think about it. Our opinions are literally worthless on this matter. My biggest pet peeve is when celebrities and others give their political opinions as if theirs are more important than any random Joe. I'm just a dude that calls out influencers for Photoshop. You do not need to know my opinions of the brewing war in Israel. These influencers will will use this conflict to create more engagement.
Social media person or entertainer, what they think.
I'll just mute this. These influencers leeches will use this conflict to create more engagement with their pages. Sorry, shit. I'll have to play that again. So and about something they didn't care about until it hit them in the headlines because it makes you watch them. Don't assist these generates. Watch the news sources and pages you trust to have consistently reported on things of this nature and form your own opinions. And this is a sensible like post by someone online. That is like, it's like there's a lot of bloggers, a lot of social media influencers who've taken into social media, and they've started commenting on this regardless of what side they choose. They started, and they're trying to generate buzz. I know we're kind of guilty of this too, but keep in mind, I always wanted to talk about this issue for a while now. It just happens to be this timing right now, and we're not doing it just for the following. We're doing it as a discussion. This is a free speech platform. That's the difference. And so that's why we're not trying to leech off of your following. We want a discussion about this. Something has to be discussed. Culture.
There is a fact of the matter that the influencers do leech off these sorts of events. They also leech off for example, Ukraine war with Russia's invasion in order to virtue signal. And they do somewhat bring it into this often, in at least the Israel-Palestine conflict. They usually do polarize it into this sort of team sport, or not even polarize it, but they make it into a team sport, which destroys, reasoned argumentation and reasonable politics around it.
Yes.
I think social media has a lot to, stand for in terms of negative influences upon public discourse in politics.
Yeah,
and it's also that influences also spread a lot of weird conspiracy theories. I mean, we had the Reanimator here in the comments. It's okay for him to comment about and arguing about Russia, and I will, for example, sometimes argue against him in the comments here. But I think that if he is not like paid by the Kremlin, which I think the majority are not, but there are those that are just troll farms and trolling for the Kremlin. But I don't think he is that. I think most are actually genuine people that argue for them. But I think that most of those people that begin to believe the Russian propaganda believe it because they watched someone sprouting these sort of Russian propaganda or and other sort of propaganda, and then they just adopt it because influencers that have a lot of followers and the fanboys following them unquestionably does have influences upon people.
Yes, and it gets very frustrating to see influencers using their opinions, and that becomes a mass opinion of so many people. And an opinion is basically like it needs no verification. So they're not even presenting you facts. They're just giving you their opinion. So, that's why I agree with this influencer specifically who says that he's
regarding Poya has something here.
Yeah, which in the job requirement for when countries become nationalized within the past few hundred years is nationalism's worst characteristics.
I mean, he said before that all nation states are bastards, and there is actually a grain of truth to that. But I would say that I actually prefer nation states to, tribal states or most pre-modern polities that are, united along clan and tribal lines or religion or various other very weird sort of political constellations that we don't have in the modern day.
Yeah, and especially like the Arab world itself is plagued with like what do you call it, tribal alliances, right? Even to this day. So this has been a thorn on the sides of countries like Saudi, countries like Jordan. This has contributed to their crimes as well too. So
I mean, we have to remember that the nation state is a pretty recent political construction. Sure, there are some exceptions, even in pre-modern time, where you could argue that they were nation states. But in most of human history, it has been tribal confederations, theocracies based around religion. There has even been, corporatocracies, like, for example, state-like consolidations around companies or commercial interests like merchant republics, or even the East Indian Company had state-like functions. And you have had a lot of other weird things that, for example, nomadic tribal alliances as well.
Yeah, and prehistory, it's mostly tribes. I do agree. It's very tribal.
Yeah, I said pre-modern history.
Yeah. No, he said pre-modern history. Yes, not prehistory. Pre-modern history. So the nation state is like you said, a very relatively newer concept in comparison to.
Yeah, and you also have kingdoms as well, which aren't nation states.
Yeah.
And I mean, arguably one of the things that have damaged the Middle East a lot is that they went for the nation state too quickly. I mean, if we look at the most functional states in the Middle East, many of them are actually older monarchies.
Really? Like, you think that they nationalized too soon or became nation states too soon?
Yeah, they tried to become nation states without the prerequisite institutions and organizations in order to become that.
Right. Okay. So would you feel that is the core problem of like the various conflicts in the Middle East? Do you feel
I think it might even be a bigger issue than Islam, but it's not the only issue.
They're not the only, but I think
and with Islam, I meant most of the worst excesses of Islamic
like
thinking,
extremist political Islam, yes, or authoritarian Islam, and I do feel this could be.
Drastic measure Islam and the emanator. I actually have no issue with people having other views. I will discuss them if I think that they are terribly wrong. And I said the Reanimator is probably not a troll. That was why I said he probably is genuine in his views. He's just wrong about them, in my view. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make wrong comments in the comment section.
Yeah. And again, we have to stay relevant to the discussion. I learned about
that's true.
Apology class of accounts, and the one thing that example that nations is all try to nationalize the language, controlling education and news. Is this true to an extent? I think it's true. No.
I mean, it's kind of like they try to control it by standardizing in which language you can post things in.
Yeah. Also, yes, hello, Drastic, by the way. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's definitely what do you call it? It's okay to have opinions. Like, you more than welcome to share. We will push back for sure. And also, by the way, I did want to also react to a video shared by Mufti Abulay. So brace yourself. Oh, really? Just on the side, really? You can't study Azari? It has to be Farsi. Interesting. Very interesting. And also, like, that's kind of disturbing too, in a way. Yeah, no, thank you, Drastic. We'll try to like wrap
I mean,
up.
there was a lot of similar issues regarding language use also when Sweden tried
Yeah,
to create the nation state. I mean, you have to remember that Swedish, for example, it's the other Nordic languages like Danish and Norwegian are pretty close to Swedish. So a lot of people there spoke what could be considered either Norwegian, like a mix between Norwegian and Swedish, and sometimes they wanted to have their own language in the 19th century, but they weren't allowed to.
Also, really, Reza Shah did that, and he was Hitler's. Interesting. I actually did not know this.
Oh, when it comes to Iran and its sympathies for,
Nazi Germany.
Yeah, there is a reason why I actually don't think that the Islamic Revolution was actually that of a bad thing. Because I've looked up the numbers of people killed when it comes to minorities.
Yeah.
And let me just say that the Islamic regime, for all of its fault, it's actually less bloody when it comes to, ethnic cleansings.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, damn. This shit gets more complicated the more we go into the rabbit hole. More complicated it gets.
Yes. I have always thought that, at first, the Islamic regime was just, the current regime in Iran was only just with detriment and, made it worse. But then I heard from, the Arabic-speaking minorities that, no, it wasn't like that. And then I went into it and looked at various numbers.
Which Shah was this? Was this the father or was it the son? Puya, was it the father or was it? I'm weirdly curious because I know the son ousted the father and he gave the country to what do you call it? The United States, Russia, and Britain. But I didn't know the father was also. Was it the father? I'm guessing it's the father. Hitler was a nationalist. You don't. Oh man. Like, I will, what do you call it? Let me just play this clip. And this is going to be interesting to view as well. This is shared by Mufti Abulay.
It's going to be horrendous. This spiral of violence continues. What do you make of this?
What I make of it is that the violence that we're seeing at the moment is, put in place and encouraged by the fact that there is so little knowledge and understanding of what is going on in Palestine and the crimes that are being committed there every day. If, like me, you know people in Palestine, you know journalists working in Palestine, you know human rights organizations working there, your newsfeed every day will be full of videos of Israeli troops harming civilians, killing children often. We know that 6,400 Palestinians have been killed since 2008 by IDF
Nothing
forces.
justifies the scale of this. This is ISIS-level terrorism.
What you're saying...
This is not just a revenge attack.
When you put to me a question like that, it's the equivalent of saying, there's a man who's in a house, he's got his whole family there, another guy comes in, kicks him out of his house, locks him in the cellar, kills his family, says, you're not coming out. All of his neighbors say, oh yeah, you're right to keep him in there, and just ignore the situation. Suddenly the man comes up, busts out, says, I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff. I'm burning the house down. Lots of people die. And then the only way that you look at the situation is by saying, oh, let's condemn the man in the cellar.
Now, what do you think, Ginny? All right, Ginny, you're there? Okay, I think. Okay. What do you call it? Yeah, it's so yeah, what do you think about that video? Yeah, I know. Piers Morgan.
I was trying to, yes, Reza Shah was, the father. Then, his son took power in the coup, and, then eventually the Islamic Revolution happened. But many of the policies were still continued.
Yeah.
They didn't end. Sure, they were maybe a little bit less, but they still, continue to be in a way that, sure, the Islamic regime says that you have to study in, for example, Farsi, but it doesn't actively kind of try to kill people in the same way. Or, jail you if you speak another language outside of it.
Yeah.
That was what, the previous regime did.
Mm.
And sent you to work camps in the mines where you were worked to death.
Yeah. Also, gin and tonic. I know we're dealing with a heavy topic, but just say happy 12th anniversary. Yeah, happy 12th. And it's just that the timing was so bad.
Yeah.
I know. This is timing. Because the conflict was happening, I think it was about time we had to address this issue. And also, what did you think of the...
Speaking about Iran, Iran is also an ally of, or, aiding Russia by sending drones to Russia.
Well, keep in mind, Iran is also funding Hamas too, right?
Yes.
Like, Iran
so
is a big
these
donor.
things are interconnected.
Yeah. So Iran's situation is also connected. And weirdly enough, Qatar is a big donor for Hamas, as we have stated earlier as well, too. So, this is definitely an interesting scenario and how it will play out. And I feel like Russia has sympathies for both sides, like even Israel and Iran in a way. So, Russia is in a weird, power, sort of a power struggle of sorts. Well, no, sort of like alliances, weird alliances.
I mean, you also have to remember that these things about alliances, a lot of it is just real politics. You don't actually believe in any sort of principles when you do.
Oh, yeah.
Power.
Yeah, because it's more, I think, like you said earlier, Ginny, it's usually the most convenient ally, usually is the first. They just use it. They're more
Russia having sympathy. We shouldn't. Sure, Russia is an extremely aggressive country that is imperialist, but you also need to remember that Russians are humans too. They can have sympathy, and you also see in Russian history a lot of times where they do things that you can't just explain by real politics.
Yeah, it's weird.
For example,
Russia
jumping in the
some what do you call it, power plants to Pakistan, which was unexplained, and there was no it's like, why did you give us that? So there's some weird happenings with Russian governments, so to speak.
I mean, people think that just because something a state is generally, for example, very bad, it must mean that they are always bad, and that's never the case in history.
Yeah.
Even the Putin regime, no matter how much I dislike them, and I think that they are, one of the biggest threats right now on Earth, even they have had positive sides, and have positive sides.
Yeah, and I think there's also one second. There's another article that it's like you said, Ginny, it's complicated. Everything's fucking complicated. So it's never straightforward. It's never clean cut. And I was talking to a friend yesterday too. People want to simplify issues, but it's never clear cut. It's always going to never be clear cut. So this is why, we have to address the complexities, and this is why we need people like Ginny to what do you call it?
Complicate matters.
Complicate matters. Well, actually, at least expose the complications. Yes.
Or reveal the complicated factors around it, and to make people aware that reductionism and hypersimplicity.
Okay. By the way, this
something
is
that usually destroys thinking.
Yeah. By the way, I'm also gonna share another article. October 13th, this was just yesterday, Hamas Day of Rage protests break out in the Middle East and beyond. So there have been a lot of Day of Rage. Hamas weirdly called, like the former Hamas leader, called out on supporters to join a Day of Rage protests. Large protests you've seen in the capitals of Iraq, where rally drew tens and thousands, Iran, Yemen, those gathering holding Palestinian flags. And you could see some protesters burning Israeli and American flags. So a lot of this is happening. Lebanon's political supporters of Hezbollah held a rally supporting Palestinians and denouncing Israel. They chanted "Death to Israel," "Death to America" chants across a crowd of at least a couple thousand of Hezbollah leaders vowed to stand by Hamas. In Jordan, the riot police used tear gas to disperse pro-Palestinian. Hundreds of pro-Palestinians were approaching a border zone in the West Bank, according to Reuters. Elsewhere, protests of Palestinians have been held in countries including Japan, Malaysia, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. The protests come after former Hamas chief Khalid Mashal called for a day of anger across the Muslim world on Friday in support of the Palestinians and against Israel's strikes in Gaza. Mishal, who urged these neighboring countries to join the fight against Israel, he said, "Deliver a message through the squares and the streets, a message of anger, and we are with Palestine, we are with Gaza, like that we are part of this battle." Now, I'm a bit weirdly scared of this because now because of shit like this, people are going to start associating Palestine with Hamas, pretty much. And, and it's funny too, like why people are listening to a Hamas leader. Ahead of the incident, the Israeli government urged Israelis abroad to take extra caution amid concerns the call for action could turn violent. In France, he ordered the minister, Gerald Darmanin, ordered a ban on pro-Palestinian demonstrations because they were likely to disrupt public order. The Agence France Presse reported Hungary and Germany have also banned pro-Palestinian demonstrations. Cities in the United States have also heightened security due to the protests. And also, Mayor Eric Adams says, "We are deeply disturbed by the message of hate. It is not acceptable." And he said during a briefing in the city security plans, which included additional police resources to schools and houses of worship to ensure that they're safe. Day of Rage comes nearly after a week of Hamas attacks, firing thousands of rockets towards Israel and ambushing kibbutzim near the Gaza border. In response, declared war and vowed to destroy Hamas. At least 100 people have died, and 3,327 in Israel been injured following the attacks. Israel in Gaza, 1,799 people have been killed, and estimated 7,388 more injured due to the retaliation, according to the health ministry. With possible ground incursion into Gaza, Israel's military directed to the evacuation of northern Gaza, home to 1.1 million people within 24 hours. So this is going to be this is a very tense situation that they've been ordered to evacuate, but I don't know where the 1.1 million people are going to go. And it's funny too, like this has having some global effects to this conflict. I haven't seen this in a while, this level. Any thoughts, Ginny?
I mean, protests like these have erupted during the Intifadas as well, and similar things. So this doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and I think for the last video where you reviewed, did you have any thoughts on the last video that we reviewed, where the woman said that you lock the guy in the cellar and then he comes out, all that stuff? So what do you think? I know you got distracted by the Iran thing.
Yeah, and I also tried to respond to the comments here as well.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, what were your thoughts on that?
Sorry, I got distracted by the comments.
Damn it, Jimmy. All right, that's okay.
But I also need to check that it's simple. I have two functions here, kind of like.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, it's thank you for checking the comments. But yeah, it is as decent of an analogy it is, but at the same time, like we said earlier, Hamas went a bit too far with civilians, that is.
Yeah, they did.
Very hard. Like they went too far and hard. So, it is a very tense situation at the moment. I don't I think we've reached past the 2-hour, 10-minute mark.
Yes.
I think we will stop here for now. But I agree. The West is hypocritical considering what we've done in Iraq, Afghanistan, but I don't think that means Ukraine should suffer Russian takeover for all it's complicated. Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
Because the comment section became about the Russian conflict.
Yeah, and it's like no, just don't make it about Russia. Let's focus on the Palestinian conflict.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and it's like, I know it's just I was trying to like steer it towards Palestine, but like it's just, no. And France has the third largest Jewish population after Israel and US, and the largest Muslim population in the European Union. I think I can kind of see why the French government did ban the protests, because this could get ugly. This could get very ugly very fast. So I feel like I'm okay. As much as I don't like banning protests, I also find that this is a good reason. The gin and tonic comment section has a life of its own. We have some great comments. We have a separate debate going on in the comments. So,
yeah. I try to keep, speaking with you, but at the same time also keep notice of the comments so that they do not fly away into
obscurity. No, and definitely. In the next week, we might continue with something like this if there's any updates. We might cover the history. I think Duda Bites wanted to ask us to cover the history, which was from the Ottomans. So this could be interesting, though, if we decide to cover the history, but it'll depend on my schedule. I'll keep you updated, Ginny, if there's anything coming up. Ginny, any closing comments before we head off into Discord?
Yes, things are usually a lot more complicated than most simple narratives would tell you that they are.
Yeah.
And also, one doing a wrong does not justify another doing another wrong. Two wrongs do not a right make.
Yeah. And also, yes, let's discuss the rest on Discord if you want to talk more. By the way, anyways, thank you guys so much for viewing this show. I'm still hoping for a lot of views for this, to be honest, because I am kind of leeching, but it's not for money. I'm not getting any money out of this. It's more for, our channel needs to be exposed a little more. We do consider the complexities of the subject matter, and we try the voices of reason. I know we should change your name to the complicated. Yeah, because technically speaking, Junk or Ginny, we're both complicated Ginnies at this point. So it's definitely going to be. I might consider the name change, but you never know. Anyway, I'll see you guys on Discord. Thank you so much, Ginny, for today. As always, you are a great support. I think today we were both Iblises today. We both need a good beating with the holy stick dipped in Zamzam. And
it's always when you discuss the Israeli-Palestine conflict, you will always get dirty because the entire conflict is very dirty.
Yeah.
Even if it is that actually active, deadly if you compare to a lot of other conflicts.
Yeah. I know we have to consider the figures, we have to consider the facts, and thank you so much again, Ginny. I'll see you on Discord as well. Take care, everybody.
See you on Discord.
See you.
Our dear viewers.